Part 148. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1471. Miao Fengluan gave her heart to me, although it repaired my meridians and delayed the dissipation of my 5 senses and limbs. However, I have not recovered from my injuries. If I want to return to my prime, I will probably have to rest for a while. Su Tianxuan's physical condition is not very good at the moment. Because she spent too much to protect Miao Fengluan's body. So, she and I were going to die. However, how could I let her die? I had already planned everything. Along the way, I saw countless Yin soldiers, each holding a weapon and looking sternly, staring at me. As long as I made any move, they would definitely choose to kill me immediately. Zhong Kui slowed down, came to my side, and whispered, "Zhong Zhengling found me before his soul dissipated, and asked me to pay more attention to you in the future. When you are in danger, please hope that I will help you. Lu Su, I'm really sorry, I can't help you this time." Zhong Kui looked guilty. I could tell that he really wanted to help me, but for some reason he could only watch me die. "It's okay, I won't die," I said calmly. Zhong Kui looked at me doubtfully and didn't ask any more questions, but just let out a long sigh. Perhaps, he didn't believe that I would be able to leave here alive under the attack of the underworld. Soon we reached the highest mountain on the island. The top of the mountain is very vast and has jagged rocks. Looking at it, these rocks look like giants. After passing the strange rocks, my line of sight suddenly widened, and I saw several figures standing in the mountains. I recognized their identities at a glance. The Great Emperor of Fengdu, the Ghost Emperor of the 5 Directions, Yama of the 10 Palaces. There was no change in my expression and I continued to look around. When I looked behind them, my whole body was stunned. I saw Huaxiu, Cai Dai, and Lu Hangxuan tied to a stone pillar. They were covered in blood and dying. I was filled with anger and clenched my fists. I took a few deep breaths to calm down the anger in my heart. I looked at Emperor Fengdu. Emperor Fengdu looked at me pitifully, and I said, "I'm here." Emperor Fengdu sneered, "Lu Su, I didn't expect you to dare to come here. Emperor Fengdu and I have already broken up, there is no need to pretend." I said, "What did I say that I didn't dare to come? Don't you want to kill me? I want to see how you kill me today." Emperor Fengdu's face changed slightly when he saw me being so calm. He raised the corners of his mouth and said with a smile, "Lu Su, do you know why you failed? Because you are too confident in your own strength, and it is easy to trust others." Emperor Fengdu continued, "Xiang Yi, I arranged to be by your side. He has been mine since you met. I have a clear grasp of all your whereabouts and movements. Originally, I thought about killing you earlier, but this is your last life. If I kill you, we will have to face Jusha in the underworld. It is better to let you return Jusha to the palace and then kill you. You can also make it easier for us." When I heard this sentence, I didn't know what it felt like. I have always regarded Xiang Yi as a friend and brother, but I never expected that he had a purpose from the beginning when he approached me. However, everything is not that important now, things have happened anyway, and there is no room for change. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1472. However, I really want to ask Xiang Yi face to face whether he ever regards me as his brother. Now it seems that I can't get this answer for the time being, because whether I can leave here alive is a question. Emperor Fengdu looked at me with a look full of teasing, and he continued, "The battle at Buman Mountain was also planned by me. My purpose is to use your hand to get rid of Zhang Yucheng." I was slightly startled. Ever since the battle at Buman Mountain, I had felt something was wrong. I felt that what happened was too weird. I didn't expect that someone was really planning it secretly. Now, I have figured out the purpose of the underworld. They want to use my hand to collect the 9 evil stars and open the tombs of the gods. The reason why the underworld didn't take action on its own was because the 9 evil stars were too powerful and it was difficult to kill them and return them to the palace. As for why they didn't join forces with the 9 evil stars to open the tombs of the gods, the reason was also very simple. The 9 evil stars are the key to the tombs of the gods. If you want to open the tombs of the gods, you must sacrifice yourself. They are not fools. They sacrifice themselves to open the tombs of the gods. It's really strange that they can cooperate with the underworld. Emperor Fengdu showed his arrogance vividly at this moment, as if I was an ant that could be crushed to death at any time in his hands. I looked at Emperor Fengdu and said coldly, "The person you want to kill is me. I have nothing to do with them. Let them go and I will do whatever you want." Emperor Fengdu looked at me disdainfully and replied, "Lu Su, do you think you still have room to bargain with me now? As the saying goes, cut the grass and root it out. You must die today, and they will die too." I clenched my fists. "Emperor Fengdu, it is too much to bully others. I can go through all the sufferings, and I can bear all the cold words and ridicules, but I will not allow anyone to threaten or harm the people around me in any way." I took a deep breath, put my right hand into my pocket, held the water-suppressing beads, and then looked at Emperor Fengdu. "I gave you a chance and you don't cherish it. If that's the case, then none of us will survive." After saying that, I took out my right hand and opened my palm, and a crystal-clear bead appeared in my palm. The great Emperor of Fengdu, the Ghost Emperor of the 5 Directions, Yama of the 10 Palaces, and the 4 Great Judges, their expressions suddenly changed when they saw the water-suppressing beads in my hand. Water-suppressing pearl. "Lu Su, where did you get it from?" Emperor Fengdu asked in shock. The situation on the field was reversed instantly, and Emperor Fengdu changed from active to passive. I looked at Emperor Fengdu coldly and said, "Do you really think that I have not prepared anything? Or do you think that I, Lu Su, am still the same Lu Su as before?" Emperor Fengdu's face became very ugly and he said nothing. I looked at Huashiu and the others and said, "You have only one choice, and that is to let them go and let them leave here safely. If not, I, Lu Su, will definitely flood the underworld. I am seriously injured now and cannot use some methods. Even if I can use them, I cannot be the opponent of Emperor Fengdu. Water-suppressing pearl is my only trump card, and it is also my only bargaining chip to save Huashiu and the others." Emperor Fengdu's face was very ugly, and his face seemed to be covered with a layer of gloom. He said in a deep voice, "Do you want to die with us?" "Yes, once the water of the underworld spreads, the entire underworld will be submerged. By then, no matter how many underworld soldiers you have, they will die here." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1473. The water of the underworld sea is so vast that there is no end to it. No one knows how big the underworld sea is. As long as I control the water-suppressing beads, the water of the entire underworld will pour out, and by then, all living creatures in the underworld will be annihilated. Lu Su, I bet you don't dare to do this. Emperor Fengdu stared at me with a cold expression, and continued, "Because, you won't just watch the woman next to you die with you." I sneered, looked at Su Tianxian, and asked softly, "Are you willing to die with me?" Su Tianxian didn't have any hesitation, and replied without thinking, "I do. But I don't want to," I thought in my heart. However, now I must deceive Emperor Fengdu and make him think that I am ready to make a desperate move and die together. Okay, I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. You only have one choice now, let them go. Emperor Fengdu took a deep breath, and the solemn expression on his face gradually disappeared. He smiled at me and said, "Lu Su, your methods are indeed very powerful, but you are a bit naive when you want to threaten me. I tell you, I will not let you go, and I will not let them go. If you want to flood the underworld, then you can do it." As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the 5 ghost emperors beside Emperor Fengde changed, and they quickly advised, "Emperor, you have to think twice. Shut up. I want to see if he dares to do this today." It seemed that Emperor Fengde had determined that I would not dare to die with him. If that was the case, I made a secret with both hands and activated the water-suppressing beads in my hands. The water-suppressing beads emitted a dazzling white light, and then slowly floated into the air. When Emperor Fengde saw this scene, his expression changed drastically. "Lu Su, are you serious?" I looked at him coldly, raised a teasing smile at the corner of my mouth, and said, "I said, let them go, otherwise I will flood the underworld." As the water-suppressing beads rose into the sky, the entire Hades Sea began to churn violently like boiling hot water. Waves 4 to 5 meters high emerged from the underworld, and the atmosphere between heaven and earth was extremely depressing. Seeing that I had no intention of stopping, Emperor Fengde began to look anxious. Seeing his reaction, I couldn't help but sneer in my heart. My guess was right, Emperor Fengde was really bluffing. The underworld is of great significance to the gods. If it is flooded by the water of the underworld, the consequences that Emperor Fengde will bear will be great. Although the water of the underworld sea cannot kill Emperor Fengde and the others, it is enough to make them lose a layer of skin. Stop. I promise you. Emperor Fengde finally lost his temper and shouted at me. I still had no intention of stopping, and Emperor Fengde was completely panicked. "Quick! Let them go!" Emperor Fengde ordered to the Yin soldiers on the side. Then several Yin soldiers walked towards Huaxiu and the others to loosen their bonds. Su Tianxian quickly stepped forward to check their injuries. Under Su Tianxuan's treatment, Huaxiu, Cai Dai, and Lu Hangxuan slowly regained consciousness. They looked around blankly and finally saw me. They were stunned for a moment and then dragged their injured bodies towards me. Huaxiu lowered his eyes, filled with guilt, and said, "Brother, I'm sorry." The little girl Cai Dai is also full of guilt and is not as playful and cute as before. I know that they are feeling guilty for being caught. If they had not been caught, I would not have gone deep into the enemy's army and fallen into a place of no return. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1474. Okay, I stretched out my hand and rubbed Nadia's little head, and comforted her. "Don't be so depressed, be happy, I'll take you home." Cai Dai's nose felt sour, she opened her arms and hugged me tightly, choking and saying, "Woo woo woo, Lu Su. Okay, stop crying, stop crying." In fact, if I think about it carefully, Cai Dai and the others also felt uncomfortable when I was going through the ordeal. Now I have no way to kill Emperor Fengde to avenge them, but I have the means and ability to take them away from here. Emperor Fengde stepped forward and said, "Lu Su, I have let them go, is it time to take back the water-suppressing beads?" I glanced at Emperor Fengde coldly and said, "I have to see them leave safely before I can stop." Emperor Fengde's eyes flashed with fierce anger, and his aura slowly rose. He said in a deep voice, "Lu Su, I have given you a chance, don't push yourself too far." I sneered and replied, "Not to be outdone, you have to understand that it was me who gave you the opportunity, not you who gave me the opportunity." Emperor Fengde had a gloomy expression on his face. He clenched his fists, took a deep breath, and said, "Okay, Lu Su, I can promise you to let them go, but..." Emperor Fengde's voice suddenly became cold and biting. "But if you dare to leave, I will use all my strength to kill you." I glanced at Emperor Fengde lightly and said, "Okay, don't worry, I won't leave." I whispered to Huaxiu, Cai Dai, and Lu Hangxuan, "Let's go, I will take you home. The three women looked at each other, then nodded, and followed me towards the coast. The great emperor of Fengdu, the 5 ghost emperors, the 10 palaces of Yama, and tens of thousands of Yin soldiers followed closely. On the way, Cai Dai suddenly took my hand and asked, "Lu Su, why didn't I see Sister Fengluan?" My steps stagnated and I said in a hoarse voice, "Kaidi, I want to tell you something. You have to be mentally prepared." Cai Dai was slightly startled, and a bad premonition suddenly arose in her heart. She lowered her eyes and clenched her pink fists. "Sister Fengluan has left us." Cai Dai raised her head, tears welling up in her eyes. She choked and asked, "Lu Su, is this true?" When Huaxiu and Lu Hangxuan heard the news, their beautiful eyes trembled. Huaxiu stepped forward, grabbed my hand, and asked in a panic, "Brother, what do you mean by this?" "Fengluan gave her heart to me, but she has left us." When Huaxiu and others heard the news, they felt as if they were struck by lightning. They were all stunned in place, not knowing what to say or what to say. I originally thought I would bear their anger, but I didn't expect that they would behave calmer than I imagined. Kaidi grabbed my hand and suddenly said, "Lu Su, you must be feeling very uncomfortable." I stared blankly at Cai Dai. She had tears in her eyes and looked at me with sadness on her face. I'm sorry. If we were not caught and could be by your side, you wouldn't be so lucky, and Sister Fengluan wouldn't die." I knelt down, held Cai Dai in my arms, and whispered, "No. No. It's not your fault, it's my fault. I failed to protect Fengluan. Don't worry, I will definitely do it. Whoever rescues Fengluan will also take you away from here." Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1475. "Yeah," Kaidi nodded heavily at me and replied, "Kaidi believes in you." I took Cai Dai and others to Su Fu's location. Along the way, we were silent. Soon, we came to the warship where Su Fu was. Emperor Fengdu and others stood in front of the coast and looked at me coldly. "Lu Su, I only give you 1 stick of incense. After you deal with everything, leave with us." I looked back at Emperor Fengdu and said coldly, "I know." I took Huaxiu and others onto the warship. Huaxiu came to me and asked, "Brother, do you really want to go with them?" I smiled and replied, "Of course." As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Su Tianqian, Huaxiu, Cai Dai and others turned aside for an instant. "No. Brother, you have to leave with us," Huaxiu said decisively. Su Tianqian looked at me quietly and asked, "Xiao Su, what are you thinking about? Didn't we agree to face it together?" I took Su Tianxuan's hand and said softly, "Yes." I said, "We will face the next thing together." Su Tianqian was slightly startled and murmured in a low voice, "I thought you were going to lie to me again." "How come?" I looked at Huaxiu and the others and said, "You leave first. After Tianqian and I break up, don't worry, I will definitely leave here safely." Huaxiu and others remained silent, and I continued, "What? You don't believe me? If you don't believe me, then don't you believe Tianqian?" Huaxiu raised his head and said softly, "Brother, it's not that we don't believe you, we're just worried about you." "There's nothing to worry about. I will leave here safely, don't worry." Then I glanced at Emperor Fengdu on the coast and said, "You go back to the cabin first, and leave the rest to me and Tianqian." Although Huaxiu and the others were reluctant, they still nodded in agreement. After they entered the cabin, I took Su Tianxuan's hand and asked, "Tianqian, are you sure you want to face the entire underworld with me?" Su Tianqian nodded and replied, "Of course I am willing. No matter what difficulties I face, as long as you are by my side, I will have no fear even if it means death." I took Su Tianxuan's hand, remained silent for a long time, and replied in a hoarse voice, "But, I don't want to." Su Tianxuan's beautiful eyes trembled, she looked at me in disbelief, and asked in shock, "Xiao Su, what do you want to do?" I suddenly stretched out my hand, kneaded it with both hands, and cast the sleeping spell. My fingertips touched the center of Su Tianxuan's eyebrows, and with a light sound, the golden light on my fingertips flashed. The next second, Su Tianxuan's eyelids began to become heavy, her body softened, and she fell to the side. I quickly held her in my arms. The sleep spell is just the simplest spell. Su Tianxian was attacked because she was defenseless and physically weak. "Xiao Su, you bastard." Su Tianxian raised her pink fist with difficulty and hit my chest. I held her hand and said with a smile, "This is the first time I see you getting angry at me, I didn't expect that you look so cute when you get angry." Su Tianxian was drowsy. She braced herself and said to me, "Xiao Su, I beg you, don't leave me behind, let me stay with you." I gently pressed my face against Su Tianxuan's forehead and said softly, "Tianxian, I never intended for you to face this with me from the beginning, because I can't bear to see you hurt because of me again." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1476. With tears in her eyes, Su Tianxian shook her head at me and begged, "Xiao Su, don't, you can't be so selfish. Didn't we agree that we should face something together?" Su Tianxian held my arms tightly, as if he would lose me if he let go. I looked at Su Tianxian with a tender face, leaned down, and gently pressed my lips on her red lips. Lips parted, I looked at her with a look of reluctance, stretched out my hand, smoothed her messy hair, and then said softly, "Tianxian, don't be afraid, don't worry, I'll be fine. You go home first and wait for me, I will go back to find you. I owe you a date." Su Tianxian was enveloped in sleepiness and her eyelids were heavy. She forced herself not to fall asleep. She shook her head slightly and still repeated her words not to leave her. I gently pressed my forehead against her fair forehead, and the tip of my nose touched her nose. I said softly, "Can we make another agreement? After I return to Jiyuntang, you and I can get the certificate, as for the wedding, we can do it after I settle everything." After I finished saying this, Su Tianxian could not bear the sleepiness and fell into a deep sleep. I picked it up, and Su Fu just walked out of the cabin. I said to Su Fu, "I'll give you a task." Su Fu came to me and replied solemnly, "Your Majesty, please tell me." "Take them away from the underworld at all costs. I will stay and give you a break. I will restrain Emperor Fengdu, so you can just leave without worries." Su Fu looked at me with a worried look on his face and asked, "Your Majesty, you are alone?" I waved my hand and said, "You don't have to worry about that. Your mission is to take them out of the underworld." I carried Su Tianxian into the cabin and put her on the bed. I stood by the bed and looked at her with reluctance. "I know that it may be difficult to see each other this time. If you want them to leave here successfully, someone must cut off the legacy. This person can only be me, and it must be me." I caressed Su Tianxuan's cheek and said softly, "Tianxian, goodbye." After that, I stood up and left the cabin without looking back. I came to the deck and looked at the Fengdu Emperor, the 5 ghost emperors, and hundreds of thousands of Yin soldiers standing on the coast, and my expression became extremely serious. I took a deep breath, held the water beads in my hand, and stepped off the warship. Emperor Fengdu looked at me with a gloomy expression. When I landed on the island, the warship behind me moved slowly towards the boundless sea of the underworld. I stared at the back of the warship as it left, until it completely disappeared from my sight, then I turned around to face Emperor Fengdu. "Okay, Now it's time to deal with things between you and me. Emperor Fendu did not dare to step forward rashly, because the water-suppressing beads were still in my hands. He said to me, "Lu Su, you are helpless. Put down the water-suppressing beads, and we can make your death easier." I looked at Emperor Fendu with a sneer and said, Lu Su, am just an ordinary person, but you want me to be captured without mercy. It's simply a wishful thinking. Since you have forced me into a desperate situation, let's all die together. I have already made plans to die together with Emperor Fendu and the others. With my current physical condition, there is simply no way I can escape here. To put it bluntly, if I were in my heyday, I wouldn't have the strength to fight with him. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1477. Lu Su, did you lie to us? Emperor Fendu said coldly. No, I didn't lie to you. I just promised you to stay here, and I didn't promise you to be captured without mercy. Emperor Fendu's face turned cold, and the momentum around him surged. The powerful momentum hit me like a hurricane, and huge waves instantly set off on the sea of the underworld. The strong momentum forced me to retreat continuously. At this moment, all the 10 yamas disappeared from the same place. My face condensed, and without any hesitation, I activated the water-suppressing beads. At some time, a hurricane blew across the whole world, the waves rolled, the island trembled, and the 10 palaces of Yama appeared beside me. They attacked me together, and I felt like 10 mountains were pressing on me, making me unable to breathe. My expression hardened, I cast 9 Eyes Heavenly Domain, and disappeared instantly. The 10th Hall Yama was very fast. If I hadn't reacted quickly, I would have been killed by them on the spot. I used the power of the 9 Eyes Heavenly Domain to reach high places. I looked coldly at the Fendu Emperor, the 5 Ghost Emperors, the 10 palaces of Yama and the 4 great judges at my feet. This is all the forces in the underworld, and it can be regarded as the strongest existence in the world today. I held the water-suppressing bead in my hand, raised it high, and said, "You will spend your whole life trying to use up all your mechanisms, but what's the use of that? Although I, Lu Su, am just a mortal, I now have the means to die with you. Besides, I may not die yet." I slowly exerted pressure on my hands, and cracks began to appear on the water-calming beads. Emperor Fendu's pupils trembled crazily and said, "Lu Su, I think we can have a good talk." I raised a sneer at the corner of my mouth and said, "When I wanted to have a good talk with you just now, what was your attitude? I tell you now, it's too late. Besides, you don't deserve to talk to me." As soon as I finished speaking, I used my hands to crush the water-suppressing beads. The water-suppressing beads shattered, as if Pandora's box had been opened. The entire Hades Sea fell into madness. The water was churning, strong winds were blowing, and waves thousands of meters high were raging on the sea. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was the end of the world. "You crazy person!" Emperor Fendu said angrily. He turned around and said to the Ghost Emperor of the 5 directions and Yama of the 10 palaces, "You think of a way to limit the water of the Sea of Hell from pouring back into the underworld. I will kill Lu Su now." The 5 Ghost Emperors and the 10 palaces of Yama nodded and began to take action. I looked far into the distance, looking at the end of the world scene in front of me. The whole world was plunged into darkness, sky-high waves were raging crazily on the sea, and a huge wave of several kilometers was heading towards the island. This wave is enough to submerge the island, and the hundreds of thousands of Yin soldiers on the island will be completely killed. As for Emperor Fendu and Yama of the 10th Hall, they would also be swallowed up by the waves and drifted with the current. Although they didn't know whether they could survive, it would be enough to cause them some damage. Emperor Fendu looked at me hard, flashed and rushed towards me. His aura was as powerful as a mountain. Wherever he passed, the earth collapsed, trees fell, and walls collapsed, and even a deep ravine appeared behind him. Seeing that Emperor Fengdu was about to come to me, I sneered and said to Emperor Fengdu, "In this world, the only person who can kill me is myself. My life is in my own hands. As for you want to kill me? You don't deserve it." After saying that, I leaned back and fell directly into the vast sea of underworld. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1478. Emperor Fengdu stood on the cliff, looking at me with a gloomy face, and the anger in his eyes almost swallowed me up. My body fell straight down. I smiled coldly at Emperor Fengdu, then stretched out my hand and waved at him, saying, "I hope you can be as aloof as this next time we meet." As soon as I finished speaking, I fell into the sea of darkness. The turbulent water of the underworld swallowed me up instantly. I tried my best to stabilize my body, but I found that I couldn't do it. The waves were tens of meters high, and I was completely in free fall. I wanted to use the water-avoiding charm, otherwise I would be drowned sooner or later. Even casting a water-repellent charm has no effect. Because this is the water of the Hades Sea, not ordinary water. At this moment, I felt like a small boat rolling crazily on the raging sea. Moreover, sometimes the waves hitting me are like a car hitting you hard, making my already injured body overwhelmed. At this moment, a huge wave hit me. I looked closely and was shocked. This wave was at least 100 meters high, and there was no way to avoid it. Wow! A huge wave hit me and I was knocked unconscious. I don't know how long it took, but I opened my eyes and woke up, and found that I was still in the sea of the underworld, with waves raging around me, like wild horses running loose, running without any rules. Deep despair enveloped my heart. Human beings are insignificant in front of nature. No matter how hard you struggle or shout, you can't escape. I resigned myself to my fate and closed my eyes. From the moment I jumped off the cliff, I was already prepared to die. The chance of me leaving the underworld alive was extremely small. It's just, I'm a little unwilling. I still have a lot of things to do. I don't know the truth about the tombs of the gods, and I don't know the purpose of my eternal reincarnation. The only person who makes me uneasy is Su Tianqian. Su Tianqian and I still have a lot of unfinished business. We haven't had a proper date yet, we haven't gotten married yet, we haven't traveled the world yet, or even, the kind of life we both enjoyed. I don't know if it's possible. In fact, my ending has been doomed for a long time. I will lose all my senses, my limbs will be destroyed, and I will return to the sky coffin. Things may turn around, but, the turning point must be based on the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood. It is destined to happen. Many people died. Those who cannot give up anything are doomed to achieve nothing, but I am unwilling to sacrifice others, so I must bear everything by myself. Gradually, my consciousness began to blur, water entered my nose and mouth, and a strong sense of suffocation came towards me. I lost consciousness completely. I seemed to have had a very long dream. In the dream, I had never stepped into this mysterious world, and my family was still by my side. Later, I met Su Tianqian, Huaxiu, Cai Dai, Xiaohe, Xiangyi. They were all ordinary people. We are close friends, and Su Tianqian is a lover. In the dream, I spent my life peacefully, traveled around the world with Su Tianqian, and gave birth to two lovely babies, a boy and a girl. The boy looked like me and the girl looked like her. But, the dream shattered, and I suddenly stood in front of the sky coffin, entering it without any hesitation. Although it is a dream, I think the second one is my real ending. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1479. I fell into endless darkness, and I traveled through the darkness searching. Finally, a little light appeared in front of me. I ran like crazy towards the bright light. Suddenly, I opened my eyes, gasping for air, and looked at everything in front of me in shock. There was a burning bonfire in front of me. I looked around and found that I was already out of the underworld. No, I was already out of the underworld. The environment I am in now has a bright moon hanging high, dense stars, and a small stream flowing slowly beside me. I felt extremely painful all over my body, as if I had been beaten by a dozen big men. My skin was swollen and white from the soaks, and my head was dizzy and painful. I looked around and my eyes converged on the creek. There is a boulder next to the stream, and a familiar figure is sitting on the boulder, casually throwing stones into the river. It's Zhao Mian. Did he save me? Just as I was about to ask, I heard Zhao Mian's voice reaching my ears. Woke up. I rubbed my swollen head and tried to stand up, but found that I couldn't move at all. Zhao Mian casually threw the pebbles in his hands into the water, causing ripples to appear in the clear moonlit stream. He stood up and walked towards me. He looked exactly like me, except that he wore a bronze devil mask on his face. Did you save me? It's not me. Zhao Mian came to my side, sat down, and said, I'm not so kind as to save you. I was just entrusted by others to bring you out. I was slightly startled and asked, who? Zhao Mian took out an envelope from his arms and said, let's take a look. I opened the envelope in confusion. The handwriting inside was unfamiliar to me and I had never seen it before. Lu Su, you can see his words like his face. Please allow me to call you brother for the last time. As soon as I saw the beginning, I knew who the author of the letter was. Xiang Yi. I continued to look down. When you see this letter, it means that the friendship between you and me has ended. I personally destroyed your trust in me and the relationship between you and me. I don't think we will see each other again in the future, so I wish you all the best. The thing that I, Xiang Yi, regret most in my life is that I agreed to allow Emperor Fengdu to lurk by your side. At first, I didn't take you into consideration. I thought you were a useless person and could not possibly pose any threat to the underworld. So, I didn't take you to heart. But later, I realized that I was wrong, and it was very wrong. In the beginning, you were indeed timid, useless, and cowardly, relying on Su Tianxian for everything. But later, you grew up and became more affectionate and righteous. I will never forget that you went to Buman Mountain to save me at all costs. That time, the underworld originally wanted to abandon me and let you kill Zhang Yucheng. Although it was a trap, you still broke in. I'm very ashamed. I shouldn't have taken advantage of the relationship between you and me. Lu Su, you have to know that sometimes, you can't just do whatever you want. It was not my intention to betray you, but, I have no choice. So, this is the end of the relationship between you and me. I hope everything goes well for you in the future. The letter is gone when it gets here. After reading it, I had mixed feelings in my heart. Now I especially want to ask Xiang Yi face to face what is the alternative, he said. Why can't we face it together? I have always regarded him as a brother in my heart. Sky Coffin. Author, Qing Nian Wanbao. Chapter 1480. I let out a long sigh, folded the letter and put it in my pocket. I asked in a deep voice, how is Xiang Yi? Zhao Mian said casually, I don't know, he is probably dead, but I can't say for sure. After all, he spent a lot of effort to rescue you. When I saw him, his soul was unstable and about to fly away. My heart became heavier and heavier. Life for life? A wry smile appeared on my lips. I looked at Zhao Mian and asked, what about you? Why are you here? Zhao Mian shrugged and said, it's just boring. This time, my plan has been successful. I originally wanted to take a stroll in the underworld, but I never thought that you would pour the entire water of the underworld into the underworld. So much so that I had nowhere to go but to come out. The eyes under Zhao Mian's mask revealed a strange look, and he said, however, what I didn't expect was that you could actually do such a thing. The underworld is flooded with water. Do you know how many ghosts and ghosts have been driven away by this act? I looked at my hands and said calmly, this is inevitable. If I don't do this, I will not escape from the underworld, and the underworld will always be controlled by Emperor Fengdu. The underworld is no longer the original one, it's hell. That's right, Zhao Mian nodded and said, the underworld is indeed not the same underworld as before. There are countless ghosts in the underworld, but how many of them can successfully reincarnate? Most of the ghosts are just tools used by those guys. You are doing this to eliminate harm for the people. You cannot accomplish that without making some sacrifices. I looked at Zhao Mian with some confusion and asked, what do you mean by this? It doesn't mean anything. I'm just expressing that you look like you're killing, but you're actually saving. I didn't continue to dwell on this matter. I said directly, I want to talk to you. Talk to me. Zhao Mian looked at me in surprise, then laughed and said, what's there to talk about with me? What is there to talk about with myself? This sentence is saying that he is just an evil spirit of mine, and in the final analysis, it is still me. I said to him, I am not you, you are not me, and you are not dependent on anyone. You have your own name, Zhao Mian. Zhao Mian was stunned, and after a while he laughed and said, yes, I have my own name. My name is Zhao Mian. Tell me, what have you experienced in the past 1,000 years? Zhao Mian looked up at the sky, with a look of loneliness in his eyes. He let out a long sigh and said, has it been 1,000 years? I am your evil soul, born in this world since you left the throne of God. I don't know where I came from or why I was born. Until the Zhou dynasty, I knew everything. Zhao Mian's voice became a little hoarse, and he said, the rise of a person requires someone to live in the light and do those things that are fair and just, and it also requires someone to live in the darkness and deal with those who stand in the way. I was born because of you, living in darkness, and my hands have long been stained with blood. Zhao Mian looked at his hands and smiled bitterly. Yes. I sighed and said, light and darkness are inherently relative. But, to me, you are a hero living in the dark.